Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Animal Kingdom. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with everything in the past. In the aftermath of everything that went down at the school, Julia wants to try and find the job because, once again, she's trying to get it probably as far away from her mom as she can, because she probably is hoping like school and an education, because it's a life that probably allows her to get away from her mom for a certain period of time. It's just an aspect of her life her mom doesn't fully control, so she's probably trying to get a job, get money, just so she could just have something to build a future of her own that has nothing to do with this. Because as I brought up last episode, it is that conversation, because Baz and Pope kind of throw it in her face of like, yeah, but our mom takes care of us. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't mean she isn't kind of crappy. It doesn't justify her crappiness is kind of, because once again, Julia is like, she seems to be the only one between the trio of her, Baz, and Pope. She seems like she's the only one who can kind of see Smurf for who she really is. Once again, see past all her BS. And Julia wanted to like go look for a job, but Janine's going to take Pope to go see a lawyer. Then there's the whole situation of, oh yeah, but Baz is handling something for me, and Julia's like, right, that's kind of all we ever do for you, right? That's all we're really good for, like doing stuff for you, rather than like, it's like we're always kind of in servitude to you. And so what pisses Julia off is like, right, even her twin doesn't have her back when it comes to her mom. And that sets Pope off because he's heartbroken, because obviously he loves Julia, but it's just like, right, he's torn between their mom. Because, yeah, he recognizes how much Julia, he's like, I know you hate mom, but she takes care of us. Like, he recognizes it, but I feel like he's so in the middle. And maybe that's also why he has such he has such hatred for himself. Just because Pope has a lot of self-hatred. And I think maybe it's because he's like, right, I didn't do anything for Julia when she needed me. Like, if I hadn't just stayed the middle ground, because being in the middle was pretty much the same thing as taking his mom's side. Especially in Julia's eyes. It's like, you weren't there for me. And so she's kind of torn between, like, even Baz, she feels like isn't always there. Like, yeah, they have their fun and stuff, but it's like, even then, it's like, right, you still take mom's side because it's like, right, she brought you into the family and such, So, and Janine is controlling like she is. The fact is that when the time came, they were going to talk to a lawyer. The lawyer was basically suggesting that Pope go see a therapist. And what did Janine say? She was like, no. It's like, and eventually what she tell Pope? You don't talk to anyone. I'm like, Jesus, if that's not like Pope's biggest issue, is like because he visited a psychiatrist. He talked to a psychiatrist for a tiny bit. I think that was last season, wasn't it? When he was kind of like held on like a psychiatric like thing for like 72 hours or something like that. He was kind of forced to talk to a therapist, and he really enjoyed it because his entire life he's never been allowed to talk to anyone, because Janine's like, yo, we don't talk to anyone because of what we do. Don't want to take the chance that you might spill the beans on certain things, so we don't talk to anyone, which is Pope's biggest issue, because just everyone in that family found their vices and their way to deal with things. Pope buried shit deep down. Julia did the same thing, but her main outlet, her vice, ended up being drugs. So, like, everyone compensated with it in their own way. And it's not a healthy way. And the thing is, that mess, the moment her, like, don't talk to anyone, you're like, Jesus, if that's not, like, just the saddest thing, because you're just like, man, that very notion is what's going to like make this family so damn self-destructive. And so Pope was even saying like, right, I'll talk to a psychiatrist. I don't want to, but he was willing to. And it's like, God knows where Pope would be right now if he was able to talk to someone back then. But I'm also curious because like at the time it's like, right, mental health, how that was kind of viewed in the past, it wasn't always seen. So I'm wondering, did Janine have the perspective of, no, my son talking to a psychiatrist is going to make him sound crazy? I think it's more so about the criminal side of things. I don't want to take the chance you'll talk to somebody. It's also because like you don't want to rely on anyone. You kind of want to rely on yourself and family. Family's all you got. You need to talk it out. He's like, you really need an outside perspective on things, especially as fucked up as the Cody family is. But regardless, I even love that line later on from Julia being like, do you know why, Mom, doesn't like you skating because it makes you happy. You know, it's like, right, she wants to be controlling of you, as I've said before. And basically, Julia was like, there's nothing wrong with you, Pope. I was like, I wouldn't go that far. Like, Pope's got some deep-seated issues. Once again, he's just torn between you and his mom, and it's just like, that's the sad thing is, like, Pope for so long was never able to do what he wanted to. Julia's trying to do what she wants to do, but, like, their mom keeps dragging her back, and Pope is, like, her special one that, like, she always goes to or relies on, and it's just like, he kind of got the rough, like, everyone got the rough end of the deal. I mean, this ain't, well, because we're probably never going to really get into Darren and Craig's issues necessarily. Well, it seems like we're going to deal with, like, well, truth be told, is we're dealing with at present day, the aftermath, but, like, you're not getting the build up like you did with Julia. Julia and Andrew, you're really getting the build up of, like, what led to, like, their tumultuous relationship with their mom. Darren and Craig is just kind of like, I think they're going to leave it as inferring, and then you're just going to see present day, the aftermath. They're just kind of like having to deal with their mom's BS. Like everyone like, it's that complicated thing, that thin line between like, man, they love Smurf, but God, do they super dislike her sometimes, you know? And that's a kind of complicated dichotomy to kind of like deal with. And so, either way, past Pope is like burning, he burns his skateboard, sets a fire. I'm like, that's kind of the worst place to set a fire, especially like right next to the car. I mean, you never that fire could trail over and just blow up the damn car, especially because Julia's point was all mom cares about is basically money in this house. Like, that's all that matters to her. Like, we're just kind of add-ons, essentially. Like, this is what matters in both, because she kind of, coming from the circumstances she put her everything into this, and so now it is a situation of, now she can't turn that off. It's there, and she'll think she's doing right by her children, not realizing how suffocating she is to them, how broken and messed up she's making them in the long run. But when the fire was started, all you see is Smurf and Julia just staring at him. Once again, just like that whole dynamic and dichotomy just like personified in just that one sequence. But because Janine threw the party for him, but it's like, was it really for Pope's sake? Because Pope's not the people person, but she did it. She's like, oh no, I have fun. It's like, Pope's not the type to just have fun. I mean, he has fun in his own way, but she wants Pope to be a certain way. You know? And so, once again, it's just so interesting where it's like, both Smurf and Julia have that thing of like, right, there's nothing wrong with you. I think Julia's saying there's nothing wrong with you because, like, it's mom making you the way you are. Like, so it's nothing wrong with you, mom's the problem. And I think in Smurf's case, it's like, no, nothing's wrong with you, you're my perfect little boy. I think both aspects and kind of can be a little true. Like, that's how I'm viewing both their perspectives on Pope. But, back to present day, each one's kind of dealing with things in their own right. Jay's the one kind of handling all the finances. He's trying to get everyone together to talk about stuff. Craig's kind of in a pissy mood because of being sober and everything. He even asked Darren, he's like, yo, can we switch places? I want, because the moment he came home, like one of his buddies rolled in. Like, that house is just a house of sin, drugs, and debauchery. And it's like, the dude brought over girls and drugs, and I love, he's like, cool, they can stay and you can leave. Dude's like, wait, what? It's like, yo, that's code, Craig. But Craig's like, yeah, I need to get out of that house. He thinks if he can keep his sobriety, if he goes and stays at Darren's place, they switch place, and Darren's like, no. I'm like, why is it that big of a deal? It's your brother. Like, but I guess it's like, nah, this is my space. I like it a certain way. This is my place. You have your place. I guess for him, it's like, because for him, he doesn't believe this sobriety shit's gonna last. I guess that's all he chalks it up to. Even saying like, yeah, Darren's like, Craig was so much more fun when he was high. Which I feel like that's kind of an insensitive thing to say, especially in front of your nephew, considering your sister died of an overdose, like that seemed a little insensitive, because even Jay's being like, how's all that going? He's sounding a little bit more concerned than Darren is, but I don't know if Darren's so far up his own ass he doesn't realize, like, probably is a little inappropriate, because it's like, right, it wasn't that long ago that your mom dealing with her own, so like Jay might be a little more sensitive to that subject of someone trying to stay sober. It's like, yeah, his mom struggled with stuff, so it's like, it just seems kind of insensitive of you to do that when it's like your own sister dying, under those circumstances. So, but truth be told, is maybe it's just the circumstances of Darren and Craig. Well, at least Darren in particular, just in this instance, maybe he never really had that tight of a relationship with Julia, because it seems like the only people who did was Baz and Pope. To be fair, they were older. Like, Darren and Craig were super young at the time, so, they didn't really probably grow up with Julia, and by the time they were older, like, Julia probably already bounced out of the house by then. Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. Speaking of the Craig situation, he meets up with this biker dude, and this guy's like, oh, yeah, I own this shop and everything. It's like, oh, they're hitting it off. I'm like, okay. And it's like, yeah, like, I'm going through my own struggles with sobriety too. You're living for that thrill. They go on a bike ride, everything's chillax. The moment the dude's like, yeah, like, we find that thrill some other way, and he starts talking about hitting up a cell phone place, I was like, are you a fucking cop? And then even Craig asked, are you a cop? I was like, yeah, I was feeling that too. Home dude was asking too many questions. Like, you just happen to be talking to a lifelong, like, thief, robber, criminal, and you just happen to be talking about, like, hitting up a place for thrills. I'm like, dude, you came too much with a well-prepared story. Then I'm like, there's something off about this. And the guy's like, oh, you think I'm a cop? And him and Craig hit a place, because I figured that, like, before the cop aspect came into it, I was thinking, like, maybe he's gonna be like, Craig's gonna go get his thrill once again, find some other vice, for not doing drugs or alcohol and all that. So seems like him and this dude hit it off when they robbed that place, and it's like, oh, they're gonna do crazier and crazier things, and it's like, it's gonna blow up in their face. Which I think it's interesting timing too, because Jay said that he's basically going to set stuff up that everyone gets the equal pay just in case a job ever goes wrong. It's like, that's heavily foreshadowing. They've had jobs go sideways anyway, but still. Pope's kind of concerned with his own circumstances. That little lot got put up for sale, and he was super pissed at Jay. But Jay was like, no, I wasn't trying to sell it. I was just trying to get a good, like, grasp of, like, the pricing in the area. He's like, I was never going to sell that. That place, you will always have the final say. Like, it can't go without your say-so, without your signature and stuff. So... And we kind of get at the end, find out what Pope is building. It's building, well, at the very least, there's a ramp there. We don't know how more elaborate he's going to, like, whether he's going to add more to it. But, I mean, we've seen it in the past. Like, was it just last season, or was it just a past season? Because a lot of stuff blurs together. I don't know if it was season 3 or 4. I mean, he might be even done it earlier seasons, but I feel like there was a more recent season he really did it. The whole, like, just sitting on his skateboard, like, going up, back and forth in a rink. And I want to say that was last season, but maybe that, like I said, maybe that could have been season 4. Either way, I also love Pope hired the guy. It's like, oh yeah, that's an interesting way to go about the hiring process. It's like, hey, you're trying to steal my tools, I'm gonna beat your ass, or you can work for me. It's like, cool. And I also love it. Take off the damn beanie. It's 90 degrees outside, and it makes me sick to my stomach. I'm like, oh, you're such an asshole, Pope. I love it. But yeah, getting home dude to, like, build stuff, even like, yo, you're gonna do it the right way, you're gonna pull it apart and such. So, because the guy was looking for a job, he's like, I'm a carpenter, so, like, yeah, we could work this out. So the thing they were building is a ramp, like I said, whether or not there ends up being anything more from it. And and seeing, once again, I brought it up last episode, Pope being happy, you're like, oh man, that shit's gonna, like, disappear quick. Once again, when the Catherine stuff really kicks in. But yeah, he's on his board, he's happy. I think it's him finally taking back a little bit from his circumstances with his mom. It's like, for the first time, he's in a good place. And I think maybe with all this stuff probably making him thinking about Julia, he's like, right, I want to take your advice and do something that makes me happy and not have to always be adherent to what mom wants, what makes her happy. He's like, so maybe that's a big motivator for all of this. Then there's a whole circumstance with Darren because they were doing that whole invoice thing, him and Jay, because Jay's like, yo, I appreciate, because it's like, right, last season, Darren's the one that kind of got Pope and Craig more on his side, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to need someone to back me up, and Darren's like, yo, I got your back, just don't fuck this up. A lot of pressure on Jay, because he's the one that's like, yeah, he is the youngest of them, and it's like, right, he has to be more of the adult who handles stuff, plans stuff out, because his uncles are not the most... You know, it's just kind of like a lot of stuff gets dumped on his shoulders, which can be a lot. So there's that. Then there's Darren ran into someone he knew. My understanding of that scene, and maybe I missed something, it sounded like he was saying like, oh, that dude that Darren had beef with. It's like, yeah, my mom paid you off to basically screw up my circumstances in the past, like when it came to surfing and stuff. And he's like, I'm sorry, dude, I was afraid of your mom. It's like, well, you've got me to be afraid of now. So it's like further elements of his mom doing whatever she can, sabotaging everyone. It's like, I think that's the best word to say. Smurf to control everyone and everything, to keep people under her control, under her thumb. She sabotaged a lot. We see it in the past where she's sabotaging Julia. So it seems like she did the same thing to Darren in the past. And he's kind of, once again, going back to the whole, yeah, never forgive and never forget. Here's Darren getting payback, you know. Couldn't do it while his mom's alive because I guess he never ran into the guy until now. It's like, oh, have this opportunity. I need something from you. So, yeah, you're going to do what I want you to because you're going to be afraid of me. So we'll see where things kind of go from there. But then you'll also have Jay meeting with a lawyer. I think her name was named Penny. She was kind of a young person. And even he was like, well, you're an attorney. And he even apologizes for it later because he sees kind of the crap she kind of has to deal with at work. The guy being like, yo, did you send that thing? She's like, yeah, I sent it. He's like, I don't see it. She's like, check again. So it's like, she's the youngster that everyone kind of pushes around, which obviously Jay can relate. Like, he's the one that's kind of like, people underestimate you just because you're young. So there's a little camaraderie there. And he's kind of looking to her to become like, well, because she's setting him up with like, oh, I could set you up with the perfect lawyer. But I'm thinking Jay's going like, no, you seem good at what you do. I'm going to be more inclined. Like, well, it seems like he kind of likes her, which is I'm like, well, what about, you know, well, I don't know if that's a relationship he's in right now, or is that just like a casual thing? Well, because she's no longer a lawyer, so it's like, right, he can't use her, Pamela's granddaughter. So I guess that's, you know, but it seemed like him and, once again, I think her name's Penny, kind of hit it off. But she does admit she's married. Granted, her husband's in the service and he's away. And you're just like, don't go down that route, bro. You don't go breaking up a marriage or something. But she's like, no, I can have friends. You're just like, oh, I hope they're not setting this up to be a complicated thing. But it does seem like Jay immediately was kind of like, yo, like, there was something there. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm very fascinated to see. Back to the Craig thing really quickly. I am curious if Home Dude actually is a cop. Like I said, like, I mean, people have done a lot to get close to the Codys in the past, so it wouldn't be that out there to think that someone would like, oh, do a little wrong just so I can, because it's like, right, it's like, yeah, this is small time. It's like, oh, get really in with you and then catch you, but it's like, no, I'm 50-50 on that. Like, oh, maybe there is some part that maybe he actually is a cop, but I'm leaning the other way, saying like, no, he probably isn't. He's just going to be the one that Craig probably ends up going off the deep end a little bit because getting mixed up with that guy. It's just like, it's going to be all kinds of trouble, I feel, so that's going to suck. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where things kind of go. Once again, I'm super surprised the Catherine thing didn't immediately hit this season. It's like, I think they're setting up a lot of setup that is like, right, the Catherine thing is going to be the big crux of it, but everything else, it's like these two episodes were kind of set up for other elements trickling out, where everyone's set up for everyone's stories and kind of leading into the final like arc of this series. Going into this, you know, I think so. I think based on the previews, I think the Catherine thing is going to hit like next episode. Or, I mean, who knows how quickly that's going to make its way to the Codys, because the cops could be building a case right now, gathering up as much information as they can We'll see how that plays out, whether there's stuff in the past we really get. I know there's a trailer out, but I'm glad I kind of did watch a trailer, because I had no idea what to fully expect from this. I mean, except for the Catherine stuff. You knew, because that's what they left that stinger at the end of last season. But I knew that going into this. But other than that, I wasn't sure where the flashbacks were going to take us this season. I don't think I even knew for sure that they would. And I'm glad we are getting them. And just, is that going to end with, maybe Jay dying just as he comes into this world? Because maybe the flashbacks will end with Julia leaving and giving birth to Jay type of situation. I'm curious, because once again, the show has done a really good job paralleling those, like I said, like last season ending with, in the past, Julia, Andrew, and Smurf moving into the house that they live in now with, it's like, right, the beginnings of her empire, and here, Jay and his uncles, united again. Like that parallel, so I get the feeling like you could definitely get maybe Jay either comes out on top and him being born into this all of this, or once again maybe he ends up dying, and that's it also coming full circle. We'll ultimately have to wait and see where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.